Coming to you from sunny Orlando, Florida, welcome to the Paperstac podcast, where we cover current topics in the note industry, give you tactics for your note business, and talk with industry leaders to make you a better note investor. And now, your hosts, Brett Berkey and Rick Allen.
Hey, welcome to the Paperstac podcast. I am Brett. This is Rick. We are doing this series called My First Note. We have our second guest of the show, which is Kimberly.
Yes, Kimberly
Fawcett.
Kimberly Fawcett.
Yes, so I had to make sure I got it Kimberly.
Yeah, Brett messed up and called her Kim. So we've already seen it, already recorded it, so we wanted to let you know. It's a great podcast, a lot of interesting stuff, especially the first note purchase. There was some crazy twists and turns. So yeah, really interested in bringing you this one, delivering you a really good podcast with somebody who's been in the space for as long as I have. They've been about a decade. A little over a decade, 11 years. So we talk about some interesting stuff and go over the note space in general and her journey to where she is today.
Yep. All right, then. Let's jump in.
Yeah, here we go.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you guys.
Good to see you too. We're doing a little Zoom thing. We normally have actually seen each other quite a few times in person at the events.
Yeah. Sarasota? Last one?
I think the last one was Florida?
Yeah.
Yes, it was it DME, and then did you go down to IMN afterwards?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I was just one trip. Yeah, DME, IMN. Yeah, we had that really nice restaurant. Really nice.
Mm-hmm. That was really nice.
We had the seafood.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
You were there.
You weren't there.
Yeah.
Aaron paid for us. You weren't there.
I wasn't there.
Oh.
So I came in late because I had something going on. It was the first night. And then I met you guys up on the rooftop for drinks. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So, I guess for the entry part, we usually like to get to know Kimberly.
Okay.
Where you're at.
Well,
where'd you come from? Yes.
Where do I come from?
Yeah.
Originally from Connecticut.
Okay.
So I'm an East Coast girl, and now I'm living on the West Coast. But we did a little stop in the Dallas area for a little while. So, kind of a nomad without having any military need for it. Whatever. I have been in real estate forever because I grew up in a real estate family. So it was just the logical thing that you did. And I very quickly became a frustrated landlord, like a lot of us. So I quickly became one of those really overworked, frustrated landlords. And I went to a note event, similar to DME, but it only happened in the Dallas area. And someone came out and started talking about note investing. And I was totally sold when he said, you can get the same monthly payments from your notes that you could have gotten from your tenants. And I was like, okay, sign me up. I'm done.
Yeah. So when was this? Around what time?
2011.
Oh.
I started investing in 2012. So
that's we're like the same time frame. Like I retired at the end of 2011 and sold my company and was gonna play golf and raise my kids, and in like late February or March I bought my first note of 2012, and it was just like here we are.
And you probably feel the same way I do about that time frame. If I had known better, I would have bought so many more at that point.
Oh, I would have bought it all.
Things were still really cheap then.
I would have bought it all and I would have held it. Because I mean, our first deal was 90 grand in debt, a framed duplex in Winter Garden, and we got it for $8,400. And I mentioned that I'm lucky I got through it because I didn't know any better, and I was from the real estate space. And the last person to sell it on the MLS was the actual owner. So I had her number. And so I called her up after I went and looked at the property. I drove by it to see if I was going to buy it. And I was like, hey, I'm about to buy your note. Do you want to sign the house over to me, or do you want to go through foreclosure? She's like, I've happily signed this over to you. And so I didn't know you're not supposed to do that. I kind of was like, oops. But she was like, yeah, take it. So we got the property back and sold it in 14 days. And I was at the title company waiting. They go, look, I need an assignment of mortgage. And I was like, an assignment of what? I don't even know what you're talking about. It worked out, but yeah, it's. I wish I would have bought more. And that's one. It's like, I think things are renting for about $1,500 aside in that area right now. Aside. So, but whatever. It got me into the note space.
Yeah, that's true. My first note was similar. It was actually also in Florida. It was in Miami.
Okay.
And it was one of those, trying to go through the paperwork and the ownership chain, it really confused me. Like when I was going back and reviewing this for this conversation, I was like, well, what was confusing about that? But at the time, the borrower's name was on the loan, but was no longer on the house.
Oh.
The HOA had foreclosed. So for a while there, the HOA owned it. And then all of a sudden there was a third name. And I just could not figure out what had happened. So I happened to, be at a note setting, and a person who happened to live in Florida who could drive by it and go take a look at it. We decided to do it together because he understood what happened. The HOA foreclosed and sold it to another resident in the complex. So the borrower was long gone. I could have gone through the note to get the money from him, but again, he was long gone. And then it turned out to be very interesting. This man was crazy. He didn't want to hire an attorney. He would call the attorney we were using and rant and rave. And then he finally decided that he was going to sue every person that ever used his name, because, it's his name. He should have free use of it. That ever used his name, he was going to sue them for $10 million in U.S. silver coin. So a cashier's check wouldn't even have been good enough.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then we had someone do a walk by, to see if it was as good, because it was a condo and it was a one building complex. So you couldn't get a good view of it. So we had someone walking through the complex, and he came out and threatened the guy with a gun.
Oh,
so this guy was just crazy. So, we kept plugging along because, that was just crazy. And finally, he decided to hire an attorney. I guess at some point he decided we were for real. Obviously, when you hire an attorney, the tone immediately changed.
Right.
And however, he didn't hire the best attorney, because the attorney got on the phone. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo. It was almost 800 square feet. And we had valued it at around 28. No, we had valued it at around 40, although the unit right next door had just sold for 65, but they had done a lot of work. The UPB was 28. And the attorney actually told our attorney that the guy purchased it, loved the condo, and had done a ton of work on it. So he's completely renovated the whole place, and he'd really like to hold on to it. Okay, so now I know I have an even nicer asset than I thought I did.
Right.
So we offered him 38 to just mutually leave the deal. He countered with 30, and we eventually ended up on 34. So we paid like 18 for the note at that time. We ended up with 34, and we did that in like 4 months.
Perfect.
So that was a great first note to get you interested. But here's the problems with it. First, I bought it from someone who was training us how to buy notes, which is just a bad idea. Because, he got a markup. He was telling us it was a good note. It turned out fine, but that is just a really bad idea. It's a conflict of interest.
Correct.
The markup, you can make a good argument for, because they're doing some additional work, but they have to disclose that. It's the non-disclosure of it that makes it really icky. Second, this was an HOA state. We're involved in an HOA foreclosure, and I had no idea anything about super lien states. Never heard of it, never thought about it, nothing. Not a good idea. Ultimately, I think I liked the way it turned out. I mean, I would have, nowadays I would have gone back and said, no, I probably would have wanted the condo because it was worth so much money.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't mind foreclosing. I just don't like throwing people on the street. So.
No, it's no fun. And it's in 2012, I thought it was pretty easy to get property back. Like if you wanted it, you could write checks. You could get the property back if you were dead set on it, because values had shrunk so low, and it was still just like, oh man, things were in the toilet. There was an abundance of inventory. So it's like, hey, I want this property back. But now I think that's changed a little bit. But at least it wasn't a super lien state that wipes out the first mortgage.
Exactly.
At least because we've had those, and being in Florida, we started just buying in Florida because we're like, okay, we're just buying here, and that's
because there was also a lot of product in Florida.
Oh, there's
most of my first notes were in Florida.
Tons of product, and in the area we were, coming from the real estate space and not getting any education first. We sort of just like, hey, an asset manager, not asset, an REO agent asked me, hey, do you want to buy a note? and an asset manager had said, here, see if anybody will buy a note that buys real estate.
Right.
So I didn't have any training. It was just kind of like, they're going to sell me that for $8,400. Sure. I didn't realize anything about it. So
I think when you come from real estate investing, I don't think you fully realize the difference of being in the paper versus being in the property. It doesn't have to remain a huge difference, but you're in a totally different position. And if you don't really understand that, you're not going to look at all of your options in the deal.
I agree. I want to ask you this. I agree with you. It is a completely different world, but it is also such a benefit to if you have that background in real estate and potentially like fix and flip or asset management or rental, to then move into the note space versus never having owned any sort of real estate or dabbled in real estate. I think it's a huge advantage just because you understand rehab, you understand the cost that goes into fixing something up. I tell you what I didn't understand was the difference between the cost of fixing up stuff here in Florida versus the Midwest where they have basements that flood. Oh, I got torched on those. Those deals.
The first time you hear about winterizing, you're like, what, you're going to pour what down the pipes?
Yeah.
You don't think about that in Florida.
No. So I was like, we have to do what?
But I also think the flip side is true. I think becoming a real estate investor or continuing to be a real estate investor, you are better off if you understand the paper. Because there's 100%. So many deals that you'd love to get into, but no one will finance it. Everybody's scared of it, whatever. But you can find ways to work the terms so that it works for everybody. And if you're just buying, flipping, selling next, you don't learn those nuances.
No, it definitely, the finance side of it, I think it's another tool in your tool belt, another exit strategy. It opens up, it almost doubles your exit possibilities on things you can do with owner financing and selling partials and just the whole thing along the way. It's like if you're not using the financing side, and I'm not saying every deal is right for it, but it's definitely nice that you can apply that tool when needed. And we've done it. So it's something definitely I'm grateful for.
And I think it's one of the reasons why, it's been profitable for me, but I think it's one of the reasons why I've stuck with note investing, because I feel like every deal's a challenge. It's not like I get into it and, I got to do this. And I got to do that. I'm like, I wonder how this one will turn out. Like, I think it's going to be this. Let's see. Oh, you don't want to do that? How about we try this?
It's like a white elephant exchange.
Exactly.
It is just choose your own adventure. Yeah, choose your own adventure. Like, what's going to happen?
Exactly. Yep. I completely agree. And
so you went from real estate, you jumped directly into notes. Were you doing property management or just had rentals and you were kind of just...
I had rentals.
Just had rentals and then it's like, okay, I'm into the real estate space. You buy your first note. What happens after that? Do you say, oh, that was cool, let's do that again? Do we sell all the rentals and move on? Okay.
Well, I sold all the residential ones. Got my tenants all locked in and sold it for the highest, income value I could. But over time, I'm back into being a landlord, but I have a strip mall. So I'm a residential note investor and a commercial landlord. I have a cute little strip mall that is anchored by a Starbucks. Yeah. So it's just my little cash cow.
Where is it?
It is in Arlington, Texas.
How did you stumble into that?
Good question. We decided we wanted to go we made that, I think it's a typical mistake, where we were doing residential rentals. Let's go multifamily. Let's just get a bigger place. You do all the same thing, one roof, it'll be great. So we did buy a small apartment complex. There were 28 units in 2 buildings. And just realized we hated it because it was just the same as doing houses. I don't know. It was, didn't enjoy that. But we had accumulated, enough profit in that we didn't want to have to pay capital gains on it. So we 1031'd into the strip mall.
Okay.
Because I don't know if everybody realizes this, you can't 1031 into notes because that's going from real estate to paper.
Yes.
You can only do real estate to real estate.
Yes. And I explored that with other investors. They say, well, can we do a 1031? I go, I don't think so. So, nope. How big is the strip mall? It's anchored by Starbucks. How many units?
It's anchored by a Starbucks. We have 5 units. The other, there's even one unit that somebody split. One, like wanted 1.5 spaces. So I've got one of these teeny tiny little spaces. It's not even 1,000 square feet. I finally got a tenant there. So I am fully rented out. And it's great.
What kind of business for such a small space? What is that?
Let's see. It's the Starbucks. Then it is a training center. Then next to that is a vape shop. That's the only people I could get into, a teeny one. And then on the other side is one of those any lab testing sites.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So, it's really kind of convenient. You have to get trained for your new job, but you also have to get blood tests for your new job. So they're all in the same mall. And then when you're done with the stress, you can get a coffee and head home.
Sit in the front porch and have a smoke and a cup of coffee.
Exactly. Smoking a Starbucks and you're all set. I am taking care of people's needs.
That's a one-stop shop right there.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a lot less headaches in the single family or the multifamily having the...
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Different type of clientele.
I think the biggest headache we've had, one tenant put up their sign, while I was trying to rent out the little one. The guy next door put up his sign and it was a little too big, sort of encroached in the sign space that the other person should have had. So they had to argue it out about moving the sign. Okay, really? This is an argument? I mean,
okay,
whatever. But you're dealing with business people. Granted, in a small shopping center, you're dealing with small business people. But still, business people are different than, the woman that really wants you to paint her apartment purple. Like, whatever.
That makes sense.
Headaches are different.
Mindsets, different reasons.
Plus, I have a property manager, so that helps. I think property managers are more useful in the commercial space than they necessarily are in the residential space. So.
That's good stuff. So you're still your commercial landlord, residential lender. What's the next 12, 24 months hold for you? What's on the horizon? What projects are you starting to work on?
I am still in the middle of putting together Notes Investing Academy 2.0 because I started that in 2017 with 2 partners, but now it's just me. Including their old videos would have just been weird. So working on that. That is going to relaunch in June.
Okay.
And I will be at DME in June moderating a panel. So, anybody that wants to talk about that can come grab me there. After that, I'm actually talking to someone else in the note space, and we might work together on a more advanced course. My course will nail the basics for you. So you completely understand what's going on, and now you have your choice what you want to do next. You could be a small investor. You could only invest in note funds, but now you really understand what's going on. Or, someday you could run your own fund, whatever you want to do. But the advanced course would cover some of the really tricky things. What happened, how could you end up in a situation where the note that you bought that looked really pretty is uncollectible now that you're trying to foreclose? Different things like that.
Yeah, so more workout stuff, more like, hey, this is how you're diffusing bombs now. You learned what a bomb was in the first course. Now it's like, now we get into the really fun stuff. Case studies, stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, at first you figure you'll just avoid the bombs. Now you'll realize either A, you got one, or B, if you think about it going into it, you might make some serious money if you know how to defuse the bomb and no one else does.
That's it.
Ooh, sorry about that. I just kicked my dog.
Oh my gosh. We're not editing that out. That's staying in there for sure.
That's why I was really worried he was going to bark. So I kept him here in the office, and then he snuck under my desk. So, sorry. So yeah, I think that'll be fun. And then after that, we've even talked about setting up like a buyer's club kind of thing. I realize there has been a buyer's club in the industry before, and it was an absolute disaster. But this one's going to be different. It's going to be like previously vetted sellers or buyers, and we're all going to buy the tape together. It's not like the buyer's club would be selling anything to you or brokering anything to you. We'd be doing it together.
Sure.
Heard of that.
And it would be with the people that now know how to defuse bombs.
Yeah.
They would have all had the same training come in. So very excited about that.
It's a SWAT team of note investing.
Yeah. Note investing SWAT team.
Note investing SWAT team.
Exactly. I like that. I might steal that.
Trademarked.
Yep.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good year.
Are you going to launch the course at DME, or is it going to be... No.
Well, I'm going to, I'll basically announce it then, but, just open the cart and do all that kind of marketing stuff probably the week after.
So DME, it's coming up in June, first week of June, right? And it's in Nashville. So, I mean, what a good opportunity to go to Nashville. What a good, an excuse to go to Nashville. So it's, and I guess you guys already talked about earlier on that there's going to be axe throwing there. So if you're interested in getting involved, get involved early, sign up for the axe throwing.
Yeah. That's the next.
I'm interested to know who the sponsor was, because I know Nathan, the planner, he was like, I really want to do it, but I need a sponsor. So we obviously got one, and I want to know who was bold enough to sponsor that.
I know. That's crazy. One question. We got into it at the same time, isn't it? And this kind of would tie into maybe a more advanced course, but being that we were both in it in 2012, isn't it interesting to see how people that were in the industry or coming in the industry at the same time have sort of taken different trajectories to where we're Paperstac. There's other people who now have fairly large funds and growing. It's just huge opportunity in this space to kind of do anything that you want. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go develop a product, or you don't have to go develop a big fund.
Nope.
You can certainly do the individual investing with the self-directed, or invest in funds that are doing the investing. Yeah. And
you have so many options open to you. It's for a new person, it's probably hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, just because it wasn't like that when we got into it. It was, and I think it's interesting to see just a lot of the people that I've noticed have been into it for the past 11 years since we were in it and started, and just like, wow, these guys have really, some have gone to raise up, 4, 5, and 6 different funds. One guy that was starting when we were Jack Krupe is sold a $300 million fund, and just crazy. Oh yeah. He just huge or something like that. It was bananas, but he killed it. He just did a really good job, and, did Wall Street money, stuff like that. And then there's people who they just no, I'm good with my buying and selling on my self-directed IRA. And they've been doing it for 11 years, and they're killing it, making money. Yeah. So it's a really great time. So any last parting words that you'd give for some of our listeners?
Yes. Especially since we were talking about different courses. A lot of times people will be interested in something, so they buy a course, and then they buy another course, and then they buy another course, and they go to this event. And while education is fantastic and you need to have it, don't get stuck there, because buying a course is not going to make you a note investor. Actually doing the work will make you a note investor. I mean, it applies to everything, not just note investing. But don't get stuck on that hamster wheel thinking you're solving your problems by buying more courses.
That's, we were just talking to somebody who had almost the identical advice. And what they said was, and I 100% agree with you, that it's the jump from never having owned a note to owning your first note is almost the biggest jump you're going to take.
Oh, absolutely.
Because then going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 4 isn't really anything. And then there's a jump. Maybe if you're like, hey, I own 10 notes and I just bought 30 in one chunk. Yes. But that first jump is so important. And
I completely agree. But as a caveat, I'm huge in playing devil's advocate. It drives my kids crazy. But on the flip side, you can't be so eager to buy your first note that finally you're like, okay, I'm just going to buy something because I'm not really a note investor. If I don't buy, that's not a good idea either.
No, you have to educate first. Set your swim lanes and say whatever I'm going to buy has got to fit in these swim lanes. And then from there, when something fits in there, if you try to get perfect, it's never going to be perfect. No. When it fits your box, buy it and go.
Exactly. You probably want it to be a little imperfect, because that's when you learn. You're like, okay, if I had scripted this deal, it would be this, 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 and this. But it's got this one problem. Maybe this is good for me since I'm new.
Sure.
Obviously, assuming it's a problem you've researched and realized you can fix.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at problems. It's opportunities.
Opportunities. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Kimberly, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. It's good seeing you again. I wish I was going to be going to Nashville in June. Brett will be there.
Thank you guys for having me. This has been fun. It's always fun to talk to you too.
Yep. Anything else that you wanted to promote before you jump off? No. Okay,
I've got my course coming. That's enough for me.
Cool.
awesome.
All right, then we'll see you in Nashville in a couple months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next month. No, 2 months.
2 months.
2
Yeah,
months.
that's right.
All right.
Great, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bye.
Are you new to the mortgage note industry? Have you been wanting to learn the step-by-step process to purchase your first mortgage note? Well, you're in luck. We've convinced our CEO, Rick Allen, to break down everything he knows about mortgage note investing. Through a series of 50 videos, you'll get everything from start to finish of where to purchase notes, how to purchase notes, and all of Rick's investing techniques he has developed over the many years. From performing note tactics to non-performing notes, Rick gives you everything he knows about investing. Bonuses include our glossary of industry terms, Rick's own proprietary calculators he created to evaluate notes, discounts from our partners, our Rolodex of vendors, a private Facebook group, along with a lot more. We've packed so much content into the Academy to take you from beginner to expert in no time. To learn more about the Academy, go to academy.paperstac.com/welcome. Again, that is academy.paperstac.com/welcome.